We have been taught and indoctrinated to be completely controlled by fear and scarcity, because this consensus reality is all there is. And we never have enough time and we never have enough money. Whatever the circumstances are around you, I can choose right now to be a deeply happy person. I have all the power to do that right now, right here. People go for comfort, not for effort. And without effort, the state of comfort is being dead. We might have a beating heart, but we're alive dead. And waking up to that, yes, it takes effort. But the benefits are amazing.
Welcome back to Live Into Your Brilliance, the place where we go on deep explorations to find the experiments that solve real-world challenges so that we can live the lives that we love. Now, what if I said to you that we were all buying into a bullshit story that's been sold to us in order to keep us chasing happiness so that we spend our money with major organizations, that we support governments in ways that don't really serve us? Well, if you're interested in blowing up that particular illusion so that you can live your true life, then today's guest is someone that you have to listen to. BE Alink is simply an incredible human being. You will hear how she went through a radical transformation in Afghanistan, how her life has been shaped by creativity and service, how she has created a medical marvel that is transforming healthcare, and so much more. But the main reason you got to listen is because BE will challenge you, as she challenged us, to stop buying into the bullshit and really get on your true path. So let's dive in. If you could whisper something into the ears of the world, what is it that you would whisper in their ears, and what difference do you think it would make if they really listened to what you had to say?
Yeah, I thought about that a long time, actually. And there's one thing that always comes back. It's also the story that I start my book with. It is, you can see more with your eyes closed. Because we've been so conditioned to think we materialize our own reality with whatever we witness, and we create our reality by what we see. So if you close your eyes, you're more able to listen to your deep knowing inside, which is not the conditioned stuff in a capitalistic system, but it's our deep knowing that we have been learned, that we have been taught by our by the whole Western science system, that you can only believe what you can prove. And all my experience, my inner experience, my deep knowing, I can't prove that. Therefore, it's rendered useless in our Western science system. And so close your eyes. You can see a lot more. And I can share the story that is the first story in my book that goes a little bit deeper than that. That completely changed my life. That was in 2001, back in Afghanistan. But yeah, close your eyes, you can see more.
Well, I don't know about Billows, but I'm definitely super keen to hear the story from 2001, because it sounds like the origin story. And our audience always tell us that what really brings these insights to life is hearing, their birthing place and the journey of the kind of the wisdom speaker, in this case yourself. So yeah, take us to 2001 and what unfolded.
2001, I arrived in Afghanistan. I was there about 2 weeks. I'd come through the Khyber Pass. I do not prepare myself when I go anywhere, because I like the surprise of oh shit. I was 2 weeks there. It was 55 degrees centigrade. It was in July. It was excruciating hot. If you breathe in, you feel that your lungs are cooking, burning. I had a the light shovel camise. I was there to do a project that was described from a desk in Bonn, German agro action, to rebuild houses for returnees, incomplete families. So families with a widow or a missing kid or people with disabilities or whatever, and rebuilt the houses outside the city so that people would not all flock to the cities. What often happens when after there's been an exodus because of a war or of a natural disaster, and then people come back, they all come to the city. That has happened anyway. But the project that I had was aiming to keep people in their villages. 350 houses I was supposed to rebuild. And then, of course, you have to go and find your beneficiaries for the project. And I'm walking into this sort of rural village. It's a sort of in-between village between Pakistan and Jalalabad, where I was at that time. And it's a sort of in-between village. So there were some permanent residents, but most of them were actually people that migrated from Pakistan, landed there, and then went to see if they could find jobs in Jalalabad. So it is right after the Taliban stopped working, right? I say Taliban stopped working because somebody stopped paying their salaries and they stopped working. And so I walk into
B,
this.
was this before the September 11th attacks?
No, it was right after.
Right after
Yeah.
July? Okay.
Right after. So somebody stopped paying their salaries.
Right.
And they stopped working. Read between the lines there. Anyway, so I walk into this village and I'm wondering, like, who the fuck am I to go into a village and select beneficiaries for my project that is described from a desk in Bonn by somebody who's never met those people? The arrogance. I felt the arrogance of Western development work and da-da-da. And I was like, Jesus, what am I doing here? Who am I? So this woman comes walking towards me, and old weathered face, beautiful. And I'm like wondering. And she walks right up to me. And you know how people do not, like when you meet somebody, you're at a certain personal distance. She came right up to me here. And I was like, oh, we're meeting. And she grabs my hand. And she says, with crappy translations, obviously, because I didn't know Pashtun yet and she didn't speak English, but with the crappy translations of Nurzia, she said, I see you're wondering. You're wondering that you're this Khariji foreigner that walks into my village, and that I'm this old, poor woman who's never left my village. I would like to invite you to my home, and then we meet again. So she keeps holding my hand, and we walk hand in hand to her house that has no roof, just eroded walls, a piece of burlap in the door opening, the smell of green tea with cardamom. Amazing. So we sit down on the toshaks, on the flat mattresses that every Afghan house has. And I sit down and we get tea. And then she says, I would like you to close your eyes. And then we meet again. And do not open them until I ask you to. And I sort of fully surrendered to whatever the crap was happening there, because there was something that felt so. So I closed my eyes. I sit there. And then she starts asking questions, not for me to answer the questions. That was pretty quickly clear, but just suspending questions in the air. And she said, who are you now? With my eyes closed. Who am I now? Who are you now? Who am I now? And that went on with long pauses in between. And after not so long, I started just weeping because I started feeling like, oh my God, we are all one. I only am this person if I materialize the external characteristics of this body. And I only see her as I materialize with everything that I have learned behavior that I've associated with what that is, materialize my own reality. And I was like, oh my God, we are all one. When you close your eyes, you can see the light. And so, and I wept. I just was weeping. And after a while, after a long time, and she had kept asking those questions. And after a long time, she said, my grandmother was blind. She never read a book, but she was wise. And when my grandmother died, my light went out. But when I close my eyes, I'm back in the light. And I feel that you can see that light too. And by the time she asked me to open my eyes, it was nearly 4 hours later. I'd been completely altered. I was like, oh, because before that incident or before that event, I was wondering those first 2 weeks in Afghanistan. I was like, my God, it's 55 degrees, 70% of the dust in the air is fecal matter. There's nothing here after the Taliban, just like there was nothing. There was no phones, no nothing. I had a satellite phone that I really needed to set up. And so there was choice, green tea or black tea. You say one time green tea, that's green tea. You always get green tea. There's nothing else. There was not a lot of food, etc. I had wondered about how Afghans are so peaceful. There's such a deep peace and kindness and gentleness in Afghans. And I was like, living in those circumstances, like, how can you not be upset? And there was such ease with people. And when I was in that experience, I realized like, oh, they are not conditioned that this consensus reality is all there is. They live here in where we are all one. And this is just something that we need to deal with because we're temporarily in those bodies. But this concept that we have been taught and indoctrinated to be completely controlled by fear and scarcity because this consensus reality is all there is. And we never have enough time and we never have enough money and we need a bigger career. They don't have that. They live in where they're all one. And this is just something they deal with. So even the shittiest situations did not affect them really. It was unbelievable. And I understood that in that moment. And that completely changed my life. I've never been the same. If you close your eyes, you can see a lot more. If that makes any sense.
It makes perfect sense. We on the last episode we had another amazing woman, Jill Riley, who sort of gave us, I want to say a recipe, but it's not. I mean, her book is a guide, a challenge, an invitation to how to adapt to this very fluid world, and giving yourself permission to not adhere to the socialization of the past, and how you can elevate your thinking. You can alter your perspective in such a way that you do see it very differently, and that allows you to adapt to this fast changing, fluid environment around us. And we don't have to fall into the traps of our forebears. And as Gen Xers, we're probably the worst offenders. So it's a nice continuation of that theme. But I think you're sort of pointing to something on a whole different level, where being blind to all of that is deeply liberating.
And maybe riffing off that, Bill, I was like, I'm super keen to know. So what was different, between pre-2001 and post that experience? How did that experience ripple out into your life?
To be aware that this is not all there is. And every time that there's fear or scarcity popping, I was like, oh yeah, you can then sort of catch yourself on when you're back into like, oh, where you're controlled in this world. yeah, it just changed everything in who I am. And like I was raised in the Netherlands as a Catholic, but my mom ripped us out of the church when they started praying for the weapons in Vietnam. And we left the church and never came back. She was like, "You should not bless the weapons that go to kill people. This is ridiculous." And so she literally just took us and ripped us out of the benches in the church. But the 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 the, the Catholic uh, God was never an attractive thing. Let's put it that way. You know, and it was always that white guy in the sky, and it was like, why? This is crazy. It's so Euro white centric. It's crazy. It's not funny, and it has a purpose. It's the next indoctrination system. And but in that moment in Afghanistan, I felt God. And whatever that is, it's not a white guy in the sky, but it's that being one. Like we are so much bigger and more connected in where we are one. That was really a God experience to me. Knowing that that is there, life is never the same.
Mm. But you'd been drawn to humanitarian work from what age, B?
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm not sure if I was drawn to humanitarian work. In hindsight, I think I when I look back at what I did and why I did it, is because I was a gender weirdo in my own culture. So I was a weirdo. I'm 61 now. So in my time, lesbians, that was like a new word nearly. Or the nuns were living together, or the two teachers were living together, but they were not a lesbian couple, that kind of thing. And um, and so I was a weirdo in my own culture, and I didn't understand why. Why am I a stranger in my own culture? I understand why I'm a stranger in somebody else's culture, but not in my culture. So I think, and my father died when I was 8, and people left us because they were uncomfortable talking about death, and that kind of isolated us as well. So I think those two um, things have really basically influenced my life and moves that I made. And going to Kenya, putting myself as a white person between all black Kenyans, now I can see it going. Now I can see it coming. I'm the weirdo because I placed myself there. I think I took control of my own life, of my own strangeness or otherness or whatever, by placing myself in an environment where I knew I was a stranger. And that grew into 10 years international work. Plus, I wanted to make myself happy. In Kenya, people, like I lived in the slums and I was doing carpentry with street boys and street girls. Um, and they always said, like, "Oh, thank you that you're coming to help us." And I was like, actually, I'm here to make myself happy. Because when I'm a happy person, I can contribute more to the, bigger joy. In the Netherlands, I wasn't happy. I was on my way to become a good architect. I had a house, I had a partner, I had a car, and I was damn unhappy. I didn't know who I was in the context of trying to have that career and all the things that you're supposed to do. I got completely lost. And so when I started living in the slums in Kisumu with the street boys and girls, I made myself happy again. So I don't know if I was drawn to the humanitarian work. Yeah, that might sound great and that might sound altruistic, but I don't think that was it. I made myself happy and created a place where I could start understanding myself and knowing who I am in whatever circumstances. And that turned out to be 10 years international work, of which 3.5 years in Afghanistan and all non-Western countries. That gave me a very quite unique, I think, perspective on the Western world and what we're seeing right now. And something that you just said, but was like, the world as it is, um, going a little bit crazy at the moment. It's a very white centric thing to say because the world was already quite crazy and crumbling for Black and Indigenous people when the
Yeah.
colonists start spreading over the world. It's not a new concept. It's just that with the craziness that's going on now, nobody is safe anymore. So white
But,
people even like, oh shit.
yeah,
Like
the disruptors are being disrupted.
exactly. And
Yeah.
so it's like I just posted something on Substack about that. Like the world is crumbling. Like maybe for you now, but for many people before, long before their world was crumbling because of the system that measures money over people has spread. And since that time, we've lost our souls. We're separated from nature and we are a self-destructive species in which we have white people generally have had the privileges of, building a place where we can, regard ourselves quite safe. But that's a farce, of course, because most of the world is not safe. And safety is not where you build resilience to. Comfort and safety is not. I mean, it's nice to feel safe here and there. And it's nice to have a comfortable bed. But the state of comfort and the state of safety makes us completely unresilient morons, so to speak. you know, and conditioned to be morons because we continue to buy all the shit that kills us.
Hmm. So, well, given what you've just said there now, and your story as to how you came to really see that truth that you've shared, that you can see more with your eyes closed, I'm really interested to understand. So for people who are living in the craziness right now and go, so what does that mean for me? Like kind of going, I can see more with my eyes closed. Do I need to go to Afghanistan and have an experience for 4 hours to be able to see the truth of that? What's in it for people? How do they access it? I'd love for you to kind of help us see that, because I know in your life it's a real felt experience, but it might seem more mysterious to people watching and listening, thinking, yeah, like how do I get there, and what's there if I was to see it.
Well, it might give us a perspective. If you close your eyes right now and think about the world as it is, it might help you stop being so wrapped up in the drama of it all right now. Because how I see it is what I just said. We're super consumers of all the stuff that, in a pursuit to be happy, we buy. And because we've been conditioned to be super consumers, we're constantly in the drama of all the stuff that's happening. And we're, how do I say this? I think ultimately we are all addicted because we have not been taught to be happy and healthy. Because being happy and healthy is a very bad business model. Happy and healthy people don't buy shit. And in a capitalistic system that needs sales, that needs revenue, you need to condition people to be the biggest consumers you can think of. Unhappy and unhealthy people buy constantly stuff in a pursuit to be happy. And unhealthy people are, good consumers to the pharma industry. Because that's how you teach them that there's a fix for what you've created by eating the bad food, because you're after comfort and you eat comfort food that kills you. But then you go to the pharma industry to get pills. On average, Americans use 10 prescription drugs per year on average. That's criminal stuff. And yet we've normalized this stuff because that is what the brain does when you repeat it. Repeat, repeat, repeat. It becomes normal, but it's not. And if you close your eyes, you might just pop out of that daily reality of being constantly in that pursuit of happiness and saying, like, I'm worried about the Amazon fires, but I'm still eating meat, and not seeing the correlation. There is a correlation. 90% of the stuff that's on the shelves in the supermarket wasn't there 90 years ago. 90% of the chronic illnesses, that 60% of Americans have now at least one diagnosed chronic illness, wasn't there 90 years ago. There's a bit of a correlation with what we feed ourselves, but not just the food that we feed ourselves, the stories that we feed ourselves. And we've been told to self-deprecate because that makes unhappy and unhealthy and powerless. And, I'm just, I can't do this. I'm not good enough. I'm too big. I'm too small. I'm too fat. I'm too skinny. All the stuff that we've been taught constantly is internalized stories right now. So when I look in the mirror, I tell myself a lot of stories that are not my stories, but they affect me in who I feel and how I feel over the day. So when you close your eyes, you can sort of create an awareness about, like, what am I telling myself? Like, my God, that's very unkind. Is that unkind story? Is that me? No, of course not. Oh, my mom. That's the story that my mom always told me. Oh, it's not my story. So let it go. Identify who gave you those stories. Oh, there's wrinkles on my face. Like, oh yeah, those cream advertisements. The underlying message is that with wrinkles, you're not beautiful. So you need to buy more creams. Every advertisement has an underlying message of that you're not good enough without that. You need a bigger car, otherwise you're nobody. All that stuff. Every consumerism, even on all the pharmaceuticals. Like, if you do this, you can live a happy life. Oh, but the side effects are this, and you could die, and you can have a heart attack. But you might become happy when you take this drug. It's constantly, happiness is sold to us everywhere. And it's not helping, because that's not happiness. Happiness is a choice. And that's what I learned in Afghanistan. Happiness is a choice. Whatever the circumstances are around you, I can choose right now to be a deeply happy person. I have all the power to do that right now, right here. And I'm happy.
It strikes me that part of the reality which you have created, and forgive me, reading the subtext of what I just heard is you have the power to create your entire experience of life and observe yourself doing it. And that's a line we've repeated many times on this show because we believe it to our core. But it seems to me that a lot of the happiness and the experience of life that you have created for yourself has been around building things. And whether it's hospitals or schools or houses or remarkable devices for health and mobility, and I'm looking at the wall behind you, and it's littered with, it's a workshop, and it's littered with the tools of the carpenter and the builder, and so I'd love you to kind of reflect on your love of building, because, and the reason I asked that, I'll tell you where I'm going with this, is, I think people who spend time in service of others are generally very happy people. I mean, there's a great joy in giving your love and your energy and your creativity in service of others, whether it's building a school or being a nurse or whatever it is. And I don't know if have you sort of drawn or come to see that link, and because we are all one, and if we do live a life of love and kindness and giving, and we don't really give a shit about all the material accumulations, and we do keep building together, there's a golden thread of hope and connection and joy. And I would love you just to reflect on your relationship with building stuff.
I think it's a link to being creative, innately creative beings. We humans, if we don't create, we get depressed. But if we're creative, we're probably going to be worse consumers. So art is always, and culture is always wiped off the first thing if there's budget cuts that need to be made or something, because art and creativity is an act of rebellion in our current system. And creating things connects us to ourself. And when I create something, I'm not doing that. It comes through me. I'm just a vessel that it comes through, and I can connect with the collective, whatever that I can draw from, and to make that happen. If I see myself as a portal to the collective, I'm just a temporary portal that can draw on the whole collective. Anybody has access to that. It's not me. I'm like with the Alinker. Sometimes people say like, "Oh, that's so special," and it's, we live in a hero culture where people are celebrated for having made it or being a hero because you saved my life. That is a continuation of making the others feel inept. I don't believe in heroes. I believe in people that can live in the essence, and reciprocity is something that it's now a word that's used everywhere again, but indigenous cultures lived in reciprocity with nature, with each other. And creativity was a huge part, because you got to be damn creative if you want to survive in um, when everything is not on the shelves of a supermarket, so to speak. So creativity, I think, is one of our essences as humans. And building schools is never the aim of going to do that project. It's always using the fact that I can build schools with people as a means to connect and to do stuff together that is meaningful, to build relationships. And with the Alinkers, the same thing. If I would sell soap, I would talk about exactly the same stuff that I do with the Alinker. It's easier to talk with about it with the Alinker because it's literally a vehicle for change. But the things that drive me is to be deeply rooted and remembering in who we are as people, and that health is not a sick care system that that medicates symptoms, but health is where we have community, real food, and mobility to move around. And if that is how you define health, and then you look at the system that we live in, it's like, oh, people don't have access to that. So I built my whole company to create access to mobility, food, real food, and community, because that's the essence. That has been the same through whatever I do, whether I build schools in Afghanistan or built a library in the new Afghan embassy in Tokyo, or built $17 million project of art glass to be installed in a new airport in Doha. I did that nearly single-handedly. It doesn't matter what I do. I always talk about the same stuff because that's the essence that drives me. It's not what I do, it's why I do it and what it does in building relationships and connections. But we're very much focused on what, like everybody says, like, oh my God, it's such a disaster. What can we do with the war in Gaza? We go, what can we do? It's not about what you can do. It's who you want to be in this time is the most important question. And if you're a super consumer that just mindlessly consumes everything that from the industries that destroy the world, from the industries that fuel the war, you are the problem. You are part of the destructive system. The solution, if there is a problem, I don't see the world as a problem to be fixed. I see it as we need to start remembering who we are and then want to decide who we want to be. And if you learn that giving, oh my God, that brings so much happiness. The reciprocity of giving something without expecting something back. you never want to buy shit anymore. You just want to give it away. And then you start living in reciprocity and build something that is so much more powerful than trying to buy happiness from the shelves, so to speak. It's an inner job. It's an inner job who we want to be. And if we collectively is the crux, I think, because if we're all willingly self-identifying with hyper-language segments in which we are all separated, we feel powerless and minorities. I don't live in that world. I live in a world where we are a vast majority of diverse people that just want to be happy.
And just pulling on that thread a little bit, for some of the listeners who may identify as sort of gender weirdos themselves, how did your relationship with your identity change when you came to see what you saw? How did you kind of, I mean, you obviously left Holland and your immediate environment to kind of anchor yourself in otherness somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
And you've been on this journey, but how did your identity and comfort evolve as a result of seeing what you've seen?
Mm-hmm. Well, when I grew up in the Netherlands, I never really had language for what I experienced in myself. So I didn't have gender language for myself. When I came to Afghanistan, if I come to Afghanistan and say I'm a lesbian, I'll probably get stoned to death, as a matter of fact. If I just come to Afghanistan as myself, I realized that without language, they can just feel who I am and respond to who I am. And I had a higher status in Afghanistan, not because I was white, because other women or men, foreign workers, didn't have that. But I think the gender weirdo-ness, the sort of fluidity that I have between man, woman, whatever, allowed me a status in Afghanistan that I had full access to the women communities, full access to the men communities. They know full well I was a woman, treated me like a guy, and I had full access. And when I did my ceremony to become Muslim, they gave me a Muslim name, which was Bashir, Bashira, which you can also say Bashir, depending on the situation, they said. This is Afghanistan. No, but this is very important because
Amazing.
the moment I go around without language for who I am, I can just be me. And the absence of language has given me so much freedom. And also then a perspective on the Western world where everybody's hyper-languaging themselves. But it forces people to have an opinion about you because we've been taught that we can have, if I don't understand you, I'm allowed to judge you instead of just having empathy for you as another human being. That's a crazy thing. Like, why do I need to understand you to love you or to have empathy for you? And in Afghanistan, that was exactly that. They don't need to understand me. I didn't force them to have an opinion about me. I just showed up with my heart. They respond to your heart. And so in the Western world, I still don't have language for who I am. My book is called Inventing BE in the Absence of Language, because that is powerful. And if we're willing to close our eyes and not have the language, also the visual language for what we have been made to believe, that we've been indoctrinated with, that we've been conditioned with, maybe we can become aware of what is us and what is not us, so to speak. Yeah. And my gender identity is, why is my experience of self, why does that need to be gendered? Why, if anything, I would probably use the word non-binary. But why do I need to identify as something that I'm not? I am non-binary. What? Give me a word that doesn't have the non. I'm just me.
You just love.
I'm just love.
Mm.
Why does that need to be gendered? That says more about the binary system than about me. So I refuse to give myself language. I don't use non-binary. I don't use androgynous even, or something. Like, why? They're all terms that are made the others in a system that has an assumed mainstream that is bullshit.
Mm.
Because the mainstream, I did some research, fun little fact. If you go in demographics, the amount of white guys that are temporarily able-bodied and heterosexual is about 22% of the North American population.
Fantastic.
And a total of 1% of our whole population is those men that have more than $1 million in the bank. That 1% of our complete population is apparently the mainstream. It's crazy. Stop doing this shit. Stop supporting this crap.
Yeah.
Stop being a consumer of all that shit. Stop consuming.
So I know Elle wants to jump in with a question, but I just, one more thing that I just want to scratch at because I'm curious, and I asked this question because, and I'm going to try and do it in a way where I'm not leading the witness, but you know, this amazing, seeing what you saw in Afghanistan when this remarkable woman she cut straight through the bullshit, and then embracing life from that point as a creative person, as somebody who saw herself as love, as an expression of love, creating this transformation from seeking to fit to not giving a shit and expressing just love and creativity and empathy. That it was that a was is that something that you are able to sort of trace, or is it something that is compounding as you go through life? How has that arc developed for you? And I ask that because when we ask some of our guests to talk about the moment when they saw what they saw, you know, there's this temptation, like, oh, it's this kind of road to Damascus type thing, and there's an instant change. But for a lot of people, it's not that at all. You see something, and then once you've seen it, you can't unsee it.
Mm-hmm.
But then you become aware of the power of it, and then it starts to compound, and it grounds you deeper and deeper in something more beautiful, something far bigger than the me. And so we're just curious about your experience of going from kind of seeking to just expressing.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it has become, that experience dramatically changed my life. I've never been the same, but it's not that all of a sudden it was, roses and stuff, because you still live in this world. And it became a bit of an anchor point that I could go back to. And if I get wrapped up in stuff and get, like, oh my God, like when you start a company as a woman in a male dominated thing, it's not a fun thing. And I had really bad times with alcohol and locking myself up and not wanting to live anymore. And that had nothing to do with that moment wasn't there in my life. Let's put it that way. Like, you go in and out of stuff. But that became another anchor point, like when you got an anchor point of like, oh, that's possible. And then you've got another anchor point that is like, fuck, that's rock bottom. Then you can navigate. You can navigate your anchors. And the awareness is not a state. You don't become aware and now you're aware. Awareness is building a practice over time, constantly still. And the more you practice awareness and are willing to identify, like, is that my story? Is that not my story? The easier it becomes to be more aware in everyday life. But it's a constant practice and a willingness to be aware, because awareness has consequences. So the willingness to be aware comes with the willingness to have the awareness have consequences. And it will change your life if you're truly aware and willing to be aware. And this is why people, I think, are very afraid of being aware. And that's all the woo-woo people, apparently, all the woke people, because it's very threatening. Awareness is very threatening because it has consequences. Because the moment you are aware of something and you start feeling what your deep knowing says about this, you're like, fuck, I can't do this anymore. Like, I think I can have the right to my steak, for example, because I've been taught that I have the right to my comfort. So I like a big steak and whatever. The moment you start becoming aware of what the food industry does with animals, with the world, with agricultural land, and what that meat does to our body, once you become aware of that, you can't consume that anymore. It has consequences. So people don't want to know because they want to hang on to the right to their comfort. One of the most devastating characteristics of white supremacy. I think it's the most devastating characteristic of white supremacy. And you see it everywhere. I have the right to eat whatever crap I want to get sick, and then I have the right to hold up my hand to the sick care system to get a bill for it. But I don't want to do anything. People go for comfort, not for effort. And without effort, the state of comfort is being dead. We might have a beating heart, but we're alive dead. And waking up to that, yes, it takes effort, but the benefits are amazing. How you feel with yourself. My grandma had this one. My grandma was a very poor woman, very wise. And she instilled a few things in me, and she was also very funny. And so she said, "Babs," that was my name when I was young. "Babs, at the end of the day, you go and brush your teeth, and then look in the mirror and say, like, I really like you. You're a good person." As you're brushing your teeth, you're a good person. And she said, if you can't say that you're a good person, then you got to change something the next day. And then she said, the next day, when you're brushing your teeth and you're still not a good person, you have to do better tomorrow. Like, the ultimate thing is that you can sleep well with yourself, that you're happy with who you are, with what you do, and how you show up in the world. And then she said, if you then brush your teeth again and you still don't like what you see, stop fucking brushing your teeth because you're not serious about it.
That's a great one. I like that.
Right? So
Yeah.
that's my bottom. When I brush my teeth, I have to be like, yes, I want to sleep with you. I like you. You're a good person. And there's always things that you think like, I could have done this. But the more you're aware of that, I have that one awareness moment at night when you brush your teeth. It helps to be aware throughout the day.
Yeah, that last piece. I was listening to something the other day, and it was a cowboy on Chris Williamson's podcast, Modern Wisdom, and I can't remember, he's Dwayne. I can't remember his surname, but he had this thing where he's like, "I like me. I'd buy me a beer." He's like, as long as I can say that, he's like, then I know I'm doing okay. And he was like, I wasn't always like that. It just reminded me of that, brushing your teeth. I want to ask some questions which might make me sound like a skeptic. I'm not actually a skeptic, but I think there's lots of skeptical people out there. And you said, the benefits are like incredible. The benefits of waking up, choosing effort over comfort. I'm just kind of rephrasing kind of how the things I've heard, but I would love for you to I'd love for you to go into that a little bit more, because in some ways people might be going, well, what are those benefits? And what are you really saying like is on offer for me to access them? And I'll tell you the purpose of my question as well, because I'd love for you to take us here. And I think Billows and I are the same in this, have definitely realized over the course of time that nothing changes anyone more than an experience. So they can hear you talk and hear me or hear Billows, but it's just that, it's talk. And at the same time, what we want to do is point them towards a place of experience so they can at least check it out for themselves. And so I would love to know if there's a way that you can kind of point to, like when you say, it might be challenging, and the benefits are incredible. To just illuminate a little bit more of like, look, this is the choice that you're putting on offer, and these are the benefits versus the common experience for a lot of people. And here's an experiment that you could run, like a simple experiment that anyone could run to say, well, just, hey, go and check it out. No one's telling you what to do, but you could give this a try and then just see what you want to do from there.
There's one thing that my grandma, my famous grandma, also taught me. She said, every day when you walk around in the streets, choose somebody who is not like you, who is the least likely like you, doesn't look like you, doesn't move like you. Choose that person and borrow their shoes for a little bit. Because if you look at the world from this perspective, all you see is this perspective. If you step in their shoes and you look at the world from their perspective, it's like, fuck. And it's just as an awareness thing, like, oh, my reality is only my perspective of what I see and what I attach to it. The moment you borrow somebody's shoes, and I do that still every day, I borrow somebody's shoes, just in my mind, right? Because you don't go to somebody's cake and I borrow a shoe. No, not that, but just in your mind, you can imagine yourself in their shoes. And then, like, if that's a homeless person, for example, what does that look like if somebody just walks past you without even saying hello? You're not even acknowledged as a human being. That's very painful. You might be a homeless person, but you're still a human being. Greeting somebody doesn't hurt you. And if you feel that, if you place yourself in the shoes of that homeless person, you can feel what it feels like to be not acknowledged and cast away because you're homeless. Because actually you're threatening to their existence, because homelessness is very close to all of us. Just takes a few bad turns and you're homeless. It's very close to us. So if you put yourself in the shoes of a homeless person, it might actually connect you more with your own vulnerability. And then you show up differently. And then when you brush your teeth at night, it's like, I like you. I really like you. And ultimately, liking yourself over time more and more, like really liking yourself, is ultimate happiness. That's the benefit, that you're congruent in who you say you are, who you think you are, and that then translates to what you do. It's not what you do in the world. It's the congruency with the choice that you've made. I want to be a kind person, which is probably one of the hardest things to do in this world. Because if I truly choose to be a kind person, everything that I do has to be measured against that. Is this the kindest thing that I can do? When I buy plants or buy meat, what is the kindest to my body? It's kind to the plants, it's kind to the animals, it's kind to the earth, it's kind. So the kindest thing to do is to just eat organic plants, local. So it has consequences, but it feels so much better because automatically we become healthier. Because the kindest choices you make are very likely the healthiest choices you can make that make you happy and healthy. Now you're the big rebel in a capitalistic system because that's the biggest act of rebellion. But you're happy. You're deeply happy. Not just like, oh, I've got a big car and I'm so great that I have a big car. Not that happiness, because that's not happiness. But deeply happy, like a constant feeling of bliss because you're congruent with who you chose to be. That's one benefit that it sort of transcends the whole life into the essence of who we are as human beings. And when I'm congruent, people are attracted to me. They want to be around you. They want to hear from you. They want to, Lawrence, how do you do that? It's like, well, I can share that. It's not what I do, it's who I chose to be. It's one choice. Therapy is like one of those narratives. We talk about therapy. Oh, healing takes years. No, it doesn't. It takes one choice. And then the undoing of the trauma, whatever, yes, that might take years, but the choice is the change. I want to be a kind person. I don't want to be wrapped up. I don't want to feed the consumerism about trauma anymore. I don't want to feed the therapy sessions because they get 12 times per year paid. That's why they do 12 sessions with me. It's not the question how fast I can get out of therapy. It's how many times they get paid from insurance. That's not therapy, that's business. And trauma and all that stuff is capitalized on literally by the narrative of like, oh my God, healing is so hard. Healing is not hard. It's one choice. If Tina Turner, after everything she went through, was a whole human being who was a Buddhist and chanted and came over all that horrific abuse that she went through, if she can come out as a whole person, anybody can, because it's a choice. The narrative around our traumas and problems are perpetuating the problems in the trauma. When we deeply choose to be a kind person, I have the full power to do that. Anybody has. If you see children in Gaza in the most horrific situations, praying for other people in other countries that have something happening to them. In Yemen, for example, they were praying for the kids in Yemen. If the children in Gaza can dance and can pray for others that go through a misfortunate situation, anybody can. We need to get our heads out of our arses. And the arrogance and the white-centric way that we look at the world and look at the problems is perpetuating the problems and perpetuating our privilege. So I can still go to the supermarket and get whatever the fuck I want and do whatever the fuck I want because nobody's correcting me. But then I can't brush my teeth and look in the mirror and feel good about myself. If you're willing to be aware. It's time we wake up. We wake ourselves up because we're not happy. Nobody in this society is happy because we haven't been taught how to be happy. Indigenous people know how to be happy because it's in every indigenous culture. It's a choice.
Whew. That's hard hitting stuff, B. I like where you finished there almost feels like the perfect top and tail to your insight at the beginning about happiness. I do think you've pointed at what makes it, or what at least on the face of it makes it look challenging. I'm so glad that you went there because when you said, being truly kind is the greatest act of rebellion. I wonder if that's what keeps people trapped as well, is like their fear of the consequences of rebellion, the fear of choosing what they see with their eyes closed and trusting in that more than what they observe with their eyes open, or the stories. And isn't it really interesting that the two things, one, you see more with your eyes closed, and then when you were saying, the absence of language allows us to understand each other even more deeply, just strikes me that the world we live in is one that's intent on trying to frame everything up a certain way, and that's what I hear you at, kind of pointing to everyone, say, like, if you close your eyes, if you let go of language, if you choose to tune out of the narrative for a moment, you could catch a glimpse of something, and you'd catch a glimpse of something entirely different.
Words are supposed to be an expression of the soul in poems of Rumi or whatever. In our world, all language is weaponized. And so the narratives is the box in which we live. And so it's important to undo the narratives because it's weaponized.
Can I check? So But like your words right now are not weaponized, or are they?
I can use them. Like if I repeat love, 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 your brain is like, oh, love. Love is a thing. You can train the brain. Neurolinguistic programming. It is a tool, understanding how the brain works, what you feed the brain. If I'm anchored in love, I'm very comfortable with the words that I'm saying. That is not weaponizing them. Weaponizing words is where you use language, knowing how the brain works, to get people to do certain things or to believe certain things. That's indoctrination. Weapons of mass destruction, for example, never existed. They were repeated into existence because that's how leaders know how it works. You repeat something, or, the White House right now repeats crazy stuff all the time. Therefore, it becomes reality. It's not. Stop and understand how your brain works, and then see which stories. Start trusting yourself instead of believing the narrative. So yes, close your eyes and shut the narratives out. Don't watch bad news all the time because it repeats stuff. And after a while, your brain will not discriminate between good and bad, between true or false. Your brain just picks up on repetition and makes that into a new familiar. That's how the brain works. So whatever you repeat, make sure it is kind stuff that you repeat. Repeat kindness, repeat messages of love. Look in the mirror and say, I really love you. I really love you. And after a while, you're just like, oh, there's something to love there. Great. Instead of like, oh my God, you're old, you're ugly, you're not good enough. We constantly beat ourselves up because that's the narrative that we've been fed. Be aware of the narrative that you feed and repeat good stuff to yourself over and over and over again. Repeat kindness.
That feels like quite a natural conclusion to at least this round of the conversation. And I say this round because actually, like I've had the same experience I had the first time I spoke to you. I'm like, okay, like we've got to go a bit deeper into into some of this.
There's more rabbit holes.
Because it's powerful stuff. Before we ask you our closing tradition, I don't know, Bill, is there like, does that feel right to you? Is there anything else that you wanted to pull on before we bring this one to a?
Yeah, I think there are so many wonderful rabbit holes worth diving down blindly, because I think the wisdom that you're shipping with is I don't want to say heavy. It has a weight to it that feels like those dark spaces are worth exploring, and you've clearly seen a lot. You've written about a lot. You've shipped with a wonderful insight, which I think is worth tapping into. So I echo L, like this is round one. I can't wait for round two.
Yes.
And I mean, there's a whole world to you that we haven't spoken about as well, and that's a nice teaser, I think, for the listener, because there's other cool stuff to peel back. So,
and there's a lot of that stuff in my book, Inventing BE. About how I grew up, my grandma, and more good stories about my grandma.
Your grandma sounds amazing, by the way. You're amazing, and your grandma sounds freaking awesome as well.
Yeah. She was a total rebel. She was fantastic.
Our closing tradition is to invite our guests to create their bumper sticker for life. So what would your bumper sticker for life say, and why?
Oh, interesting. Oh, there's a lot of things popping in my head right now. It's it's a bumper sticker that needs to be a bit punchy, doesn't it?
I would be very surprised if your bumper sticker was not punchy.
The first thing that popped in my mind is like, come closer.
Ooh.
And I think I want to, that was the first thing that came to mind. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which is edgy because you don't want to come closer to it, but that's
I know, I like
yeah.
it. It stands alone. Like, it's kind of stopped us all in our tracks a little bit. It's like, come closer.
Yeah.
Ooh. What might you see? What might you experience? That's a goodie. Thank you, B.
Thank you both.
Been very cool. So much. Like, I've scribbled a whole bunch of notes. But before, like, so I just want to say thank you for coming on, and hopefully you will come. I'll do our little wrap in a second, but I don't know, Bill, is any final words from you before we bid everyone adieu?
No, but I think for the listener, there's the teaser of the next episode with you. There's the teaser of the book if they haven't read it. I know we'll put links to the book in the show notes and encourage people to engage with you in whatever way. And you mentioned at the top that you have a podcast of your own.
Oh, I did a few. I do things. I had a few podcast interviews. It's been a while because I got stuck in uploading them, and it's too much work.
If people do want to check you out and they want to connect, or they want to learn more about the Alinker, they want to learn more about your book, like where are they best to go and find out more about you?
I have a personal website that has all the links to the book. There's also an audio book that I narrated. And they're all on the website BE Alink, BEALINK.world. And there's, I used to play in a band in Amsterdam. There's some links to the music there. There's a link to my smug mug, all the photos from all over the world that I made. There's some links and some stories, some testimonials and whatever. It's there. And about the Alinker, I think that's the next rabbit hole maybe that we're going to address. I don't know. But that is thealinker.com, TheAlinker.com.
All will be revealed in good time, folks. B, thank you so much. This has been awesome. And, I just think you're such a cool person, and the stuff you do in the world, what you're up to, and just how you truly be yourself. Like we've talked about it here many times. People said, just be yourself. And I always say, well, get rid of the word just, because being yourself is the best game in town. And not as many of us as we think are as well versed in truly being ourselves. But you, to me, are one of, the greatest role models of what that means. And so, thank you for shining your light and for giving us the time today to kind of come and share some of that with our audience. And to whoever's watching and listening, yes, as always, we hope that you got whatever you got from this conversation from listening. But your grandmother strikes me as such a wise woman, and the bit I'm leaving with is, I'm going to close my eyes when I'm brushing my teeth, and then I'm going to open them and take a look in the mirror and ask myself that question. And whatever the answer is, well, then I know where to go tomorrow. Yeah. And I think there's a beautiful simplicity in that choice, and what might be on offer. The idea of, gosh, what would it be like if you knew the consequence? What consequence was that you could really, truly like yourself? That would be awesome. So maybe to anyone who's listening and watching, give it a go tonight. Whenever you're brushing your teeth, close your eyes and see what there is to see and ask that question. But until we are with you again, as always, go forth and live into your brilliance.